The sun cast long shadows across the dusty porch of Zachary Pierce's ranch house as he sat with his daughter's blue calico dress bunched in his weathered hands, a needle pinched awkwardly between his calloused fingers. His struggle to mend the torn fabric symbolized everything that had gone wrong since losing his wife to fever 18 months ago, the small domestic tasks that now loomed like mountains before him. Lucy Abernathy watched from the road, her wagon paused outside the Pierce homestead. She had only meant to deliver a package from the general store, but something about the sight of the broad-shouldered cowboy hunched over delicate fabric, his brow furrowed in concentration, made her hesitate. Before she fully realized what she was doing, Lucy found herself tying her horse and approaching the porch. "Seems like you could use a hand with that, Mr. Pierce," she said softly. Zachary looked up, startled by her voice. The sun illuminated Lucy's honey-brown hair, pulled back neatly beneath a simple bonnet. He recognized her as the seamstress who'd arrived in Promise Creek 6 months earlier, though they'd exchanged little more than pleasantries at church socials. "Miss Abernathy," he acknowledged with a nod, trying to maintain his dignity despite the tangle of thread knotted around his fingers. "Just a small tear in Emma's dress. Nothing I can't handle." Lucy's eyes took in the mangled stitches and the frustration etched on his face. "I'm sure you can," she replied diplomatically, "but I've got quick fingers and some time to spare." "May I?" Zachary hesitated, pride warring with practicality. Emma was 6 years old and growing fast, the only piece of his late wife, Catherine, that remained in this world. The thought of his daughter wearing a poorly mended dress to Sunday service tomorrow made his decision. "I'd be obliged," he finally said, extending the bundle of fabric. Lucy settled beside him on the porch step, their shoulders nearly touching. She worked the knots from his attempt, her fingers nimble and sure. "Where's little Emma today?" she asked, making conversation as she threaded her own needle. "With Mrs. Jenkins and her girls for the afternoon," Zachary replied, watching Lucy's hands with fascination. "They've taken to inviting her over on Saturdays. Good for her to have female company." Lucy nodded, understanding the unspoken difficulty. Promise Creek, Colorado was unforgiving territory in 1876, especially for a widower raising a young daughter alone. The small settlement had grown around the silver mines in the mountains, drawing fortune seekers and hardy pioneers alike. "How is your dress shop faring?" Zachary asked, feeling obligated to make conversation while this woman helped him. Lucy smiled, her fingers never pausing in their work. "Well enough. The miners' wives appreciate having someone who can alter their mail-order dresses, and I've started taking on more custom work." She glanced up at the vast landscape surrounding the Pierce Ranch. "Beautiful land you have here." 15 years of breaking my back for it," Zachary replied. "Catherine and I came out here with nothing but a wagon full of supplies and big dreams." The mention of his wife hung in the air between them. Lucy continued stitching, respecting the silence that followed. The dress was blue calico with tiny white flowers, the kind of practical garment any frontier child might wear, but Lucy could see it had been well loved and carefully preserved. "Your wife had a fine hand with a needle," Lucy observed gently, examining the original seams. Zachary's eyes clouded. "She did at that, made most of our clothes. I've been making do with what she left behind, but Emma's growing fast." "Children do that," Lucy agreed. "My sister's children back in Ohio seem to shoot up like weeds between letters. You have family back east?" Zachary asked, suddenly curious about this woman who had appeared in their small town with little fanfare. Lucy nodded, her expression revealing a hint of old pain. "Parents, 2 sisters, their husbands, 5 nieces and nephews between them." She tied off a stitch neatly. "I came west for a fresh start." Zachary understood that sentiment all too well. The West was full of people seeking new beginnings. He'd come for opportunity and land, others came running from something. He didn't press for details. "Emma will be pleased to have her favorite dress mended properly," he said instead. "Been promising to fix it for 2 weeks now." "A father trying to mend a dress shows real devotion," Lucy said, her voice warm with approval rather than judgment. "Most men would have tossed it aside or found a woman to do it. Out here, you learn to do what needs doing." Zachary replied simply. Can't always rely on others. A comfortable silence fell between them as Lucy continued her work. The late afternoon sun painted the landscape gold, and somewhere in the distance, a meadowlark called. Zachary found himself studying Lucy's profile, the determined set of her jaw, the gentle curve of her cheek, the way she occasionally moistened her lips in concentration. There, she said eventually, holding up the dress. Good as new. Actually, I reinforced the seam here, it was beginning to wear thin. Zachary took the dress, examining her handiwork with genuine appreciation. You've saved me considerable embarrassment, Miss Abernathy. Emma would have seen right through my poor attempt. Lucy smiled, packing away her small sewing kit. Children are perceptive that way. Please let me pay you for your time, Zachary said, reaching for his pocket. Lucy shook her head firmly. It was nothing, Mr. Pierce. Barely 10 minutes' work. Then at least stay for supper, he found himself saying, surprising both of them. It's the least I can offer. Nothing fancy, just venison stew simmering on the stove, but there's plenty. Lucy hesitated, propriety warring with something else in her expression. A single woman dining alone with a widower could start tongues wagging in a small town like Promise Creek. Emma should be home within the hour, Zachary added, sensing her concern. And my ranch hand Tobias will be in for supper too. This seemed to ease her mind. Then I accept, thank you. I should move my wagon, though. I'll take care of it, Zachary offered, stepping down from the porch. Make yourself comfortable inside, doors open. As Lucy entered the Pierce home, she was struck by the evident care Zachary took with his modest dwelling. The main room was swept clean, furniture polished, with only a few scattered toys betraying the presence of a child. A small bouquet of wildflowers sat in a jar on the table Emma's doing, Lucy suspected. The domestic touches remained, but something was missing, the indefinable warmth that a woman's presence brought to a home. She hung her bonnet on a peg by the door, then moved to check the stew bubbling on the cast iron stove. Unable to resist, she stirred it gently, adding a pinch of salt from the nearby cellar. Zachary returned to find Lucy setting his mismatched dishes on the table. You needn't do that, he protested. I don't mind, she replied. It feels good to set a proper table again. My boarding house room doesn't allow for much cooking. You're staying at Mrs. Henderson's place, Lucy nodded. Until I can afford something more private. The shop is doing well, but it takes time to build savings. Zachary seemed about to say something when the door burst open and a small whirlwind in a green dress tumbled in. Papa, Mrs. Jenkins let me help make apple dumplings and I brought one for you. And Emma Pierce stopped short at the sight of Lucy, her eyes widening in surprise. Emma, you remember Miss Abernathy from church, Zachary said, placing a gentle hand on his daughter's shoulder. She kindly mended your blue dress today. Emma's face lit up. My favorite one with the flowers, really. She turned to Lucy with undisguised delight. Thank you, Miss Abernathy. Papa tried to fix it last week, but he just made more holes. Emma, Zachary admonished gently, though he couldn't help smiling at his daughter's honesty. Lucy laughed. Your father was doing a fine job when I happened by. I just helped finish it. Will you stay for supper? Emma asked hopefully. Papa's stew is good, even if he doesn't make biscuits like Mama used to. A flash of pain crossed Zachary's features, there and gone so quickly Lucy almost missed it. Miss Abernathy has already agreed to join us, Zachary said, his voice steady. Now go wash up, young lady. Looks like you brought half of Mrs. Jenkins' garden soil home with you. Emma scampered off, and Lucy turned to Zachary. She's wonderful, so full of life. She's what keeps me going, he admitted quietly. After Catherine died, well, there were dark days. But Emma needed me, so I had to keep putting one foot in front of the other. Lucy touched his arm briefly. You've done well by her, anyone can see that. Their eyes met, and something passed between them, a moment of recognition, of shared understanding about loss and perseverance. The moment broke when the back door opened, and Tobias Miller, Zachary's leathery, gray-haired ranch hand, entered. Supper passed pleasantly, with Emma chattering about her day, Tobias sharing news from town, and Lucy answering Emma's endless questions about dressmaking. Zachary said little, but Lucy caught him watching her interactions with his daughter, something unreadable in his expression. As dusk fell, Lucy knew she should leave. Thank you for the meal, Mr. Pierce. It was delicious. Zachary, he corrected her. After sharing my table, I think we can dispense with formalities, Miss Abernathy. Lucy, then, she replied with a smile. Can you come again? Emma asked, clutching Lucy's hand. You could teach me to sew like you. Papa tried, but he stuck himself with the needle and said words I'm not supposed to repeat. Zachary cleared his throat, embarrassed. Emma, Miss Lucy has her own life and business to attend to. Actually, Lucy said, an idea forming, I could use an assistant at the shop sometimes. With your father's permission, perhaps you could come by after school 1 day a week. I could teach you some simple stitches. Emma turned pleading eyes to her father. Please, Papa, Zachary hesitated only briefly. That's very kind, if you're certain it wouldn't be a bother. Not at all, Lucy assured him. Every girl should learn to sew, and I would enjoy the company. As Zachary hitched Lucy's horse to her wagon and helped her up to the seat, their hands touched briefly. He held onto hers a moment longer than necessary. Thank you, Lucy, not just for the dress. She understood what he meant. Thanks for bringing a moment of normalcy, of feminine presence back into his home. It was my pleasure, Zachary, truly. As Lucy drove away, she couldn't help glancing back at the silhouette of the tall cowboy standing on his porch, his daughter's small hand in his. Something had changed today. A door had opened, just a crack, letting light into places that had been dark for too long in both their lives. The following Wednesday, Zachary brought Emma to Lucy's small dress shop as promised. The bell above the door jingled as they entered, and Lucy looked up from where she was pinning a hem for Mrs. Hollingsworth, the banker's wife. Good afternoon, Zachary, Emma, Lucy greeted them with a warm smile. I'll be with you in just a moment. Emma gazed around in wonderment at the bolts of fabric lining the walls, the spools of ribbon, and the dress forms displaying Lucy's latest creations. Zachary removed his hat, feeling distinctly out of place among the feminine accoutrements, but Lucy's welcoming smile eased his discomfort. I should be back in 2 hours, he told Emma, kneeling to her level. You mind Miss Lucy and do as she says? I will, Papa, Emma promised, already eyeing a scrap basket filled with colorful fabric remnants. After Mrs. Hollingsworth departed, Lucy set Emma up with a simple project, a small cloth doll that required basic stitches. The girl took to it with surprising focus, her tongue caught between her teeth in concentration. She has a natural talent, Lucy told Zachary when he returned. Quick hands and good patience for one so young. Pride swelled in Zachary's chest as he watched Emma show him her progress. Her mother would be pleased, he said quietly when they left. Lucy pressed a small sewing kit into Emma's hands. Practice makes perfect, she told the delighted child. This became their routine every Wednesday. Emma would spend 2 hours at Lucy's shop, learning the basics of sewing while Zachary attended to business in town. Sometimes he returned early, watching through the window as Lucy bent her head next to his daughter's, guiding her small hands with infinite patience. 4 weeks into this arrangement, disaster struck the Pierce ranch. A sudden spring storm unleashed flash flooding that washed out a section of Zachary's lower pasture fence. 20 head of cattle escaped before the breach was discovered, scattering into the foothills. For 3 days, Zachary and Tobias tracked and rounded up the strays. When they finally returned, exhausted and mud-splattered, Zachary realized with dismay that he had missed Emma's scheduled time at Lucy's shop. She's fine, Tobias assured him, seeing his worry. Mrs. Jenkins came by yesterday when you didn't fetch her from school. Said she'd keep the little one until you got back. Relief flooded through Zachary, followed by guilt. He had completely lost track of time in the chaos of the roundup. After cleaning up and changing clothes, he rode into town, stopping first at the Jenkins farm to collect Emma, who flung herself into his arms with jubilant cries. Thank you for looking after her, he told Sarah Jenkins sincerely. It was no trouble, the kind woman assured him. But you might want to stop by Miss Abernathy's shop. She was concerned when you didn't bring Emma as usual. Lucy was closing her shop when Zachary arrived. She turned at the sound of the bell, her face lighting up with visible relief when she saw him and Emma. Thank goodness, she said, hurrying forward. I was worried something had happened when you didn't come yesterday. Fence broke in the storm, Zachary explained, touched by her concern. Cattle scattered halfway to Denver felt like, I'm sorry we missed Emma's lesson. Lucy waved away his apology. I'm just glad you're both all right. When I heard about the flooding, I feared the worst. Takes more than a little water to wash away a Pierce, Zachary said with a tired smile. Lucy studied his face, noting the exhaustion etched there. You look dead on your feet. Have you eaten? Before he could answer, she was locking the shop door and ushering them toward the small cafe down the street. My treat, she insisted when he began to protest. I've been worried sick for 2 days. The least you can do is let me feed you both and assure myself you're truly well. Over hot beef stew and fresh bread, Zachary found himself recounting the ordeal of the past 3 days: the relentless rain, the midnight discovery of the broken fence, the grueling search for scattered cattle in muddy terrain. Lucy listened attentively, asking occasional questions that showed genuine interest rather than mere politeness. You should have seen Papa, Emma chimed in. He came to Mrs. Jenkins all covered in mud like a swamp monster. Lucy laughed, and Zachary found himself captivated by the sound, bright and genuine, with no hint of affectation. When was the last time he'd made a woman laugh like that? I've been thinking, Lucy said as they finished their meal. If you're agreeable, Emma could come to the shop more regularly. After school, perhaps, just until you finish the fence repairs, it would give you one less worry. Zachary hesitated, not wanting to impose. That's generous, but I couldn't ask. You're not asking, I'm offering, Lucy interrupted gently. And truthfully, I enjoy her company. My afternoons are quieter, and she's becoming a real help with simple tasks. Emma's hopeful expression decided the matter. If you're certain it's no imposition, I'd be grateful, just until the repairs are complete. And so a new pattern emerged. Emma would go directly to Lucy's shop after school, staying until Zachary finished his day's work. Often he would find them with their heads bent together over some project. Lucy's patient instructions met with Emma's earnest efforts. Sometimes he would arrive to find Emma sweeping the shop floor or carefully sorting buttons by color and size. What began as a temporary arrangement stretched into weeks as spring rains continued to cause problems on the ranch. Zachary found himself looking forward to those late afternoon visits to Lucy's shop, to the warm welcome that always awaited him there. One evening in late May, he arrived to find the shop empty. Momentary panic gripped him until he spotted a note pinned to the inner door. At the riverbank with Emma, just a short walk downstream, he found them seated on a blanket by the water's edge, Emma fashioning a crown of wildflowers while Lucy sketched in a small book. Papa, look. Emma called, spotting him first. Miss Lucy is teaching me about plants for dyes. You can make yellow from these flowers. Is that so? Zachary settled beside them on the blanket, intrigued by this new knowledge. Lucy showed him her sketchbook, careful drawings of local plants with notes about the colors they produced. My grandmother was known for her natural dyes back in Ohio, she explained. I've been experimenting with local plants since I arrived. Miss Lucy's going to dye some wool and I can make a scarf for winter, Emma announced. Zachary raised an eyebrow at Lucy. Ambitious plans. She has a knack for it, Lucy replied. Besides, learning useful skills builds character. As Emma wandered off to collect more flowers, staying within their sight, Zachary found himself studying Lucy's profile against the golden evening light. She had removed her usual high-necked collar in the spring warmth, revealing the graceful curve of her neck. A tendril of honey-brown hair had escaped her pins, curling against her cheek. You've been a blessing to us these past weeks, he said quietly. I don't know how to thank you properly. Lucy's cheeks colored slightly. There's no need. Emma is a joy, and your gratitude is payment enough. She hesitated, then added, I know what it's like to be alone in the world, Zachary. When I came west, I left everything familiar behind. The kindness of strangers made all the difference. What brought you to Promise Creek? He asked, realizing he still knew little about her past. Lucy's fingers traced the edge of her sketchbook. A broken engagement, she admitted. Back in Columbus, I was to marry the son of my father's business partner. Everything was arranged, trousseau prepared, invitations sent. She took a deep breath. 2 weeks before the wedding, I discovered he had been unfaithful with my cousin. I'm sorry, Zachary said, genuinely sympathetic. The scandal was considerable, Lucy continued. I couldn't bear the pitying looks, the whispers. My father suggested I visit his cousin in Denver until things quieted down, but once I reached Colorado, I realized I didn't want to go back. I wanted a fresh start, somewhere I could be known for my own merits rather than my misfortune. And you found Promise Creek? Lucy nodded. I saw an advertisement seeking a seamstress. The rest, as they say, is history. She glanced at him. What about you? What brought you west originally? Dreams bigger than Ohio farmland could hold, Zachary replied. I was 20, full of ambition and short on sense. Catherine was 19, a schoolteacher's daughter with more practical wisdom than I'll ever possess. Somehow she saw something worth betting on in me. His voice softened with memory. We had 10 good years together, built this ranch from nothing. I can't regret that, even with how it ended. Lucy's hand covered his briefly. She would be proud of the father you've become. Emma is testament to that. Their eyes met, and Zachary felt something shift between them, a deeper understanding, perhaps, or the acknowledgement of shared losses that had shaped them both. Emma's return with an armful of wildflowers broke the moment. As the sun began to set, Zachary helped Lucy pack up their impromptu picnic, his hand lingering when it brushed against hers. Sunday service tomorrow, he said as they walked back toward town. Would you? That is, Emma and I would be pleased if you'd sit with us. Lucy's smile was worth the momentary awkwardness of the invitation. I'd like that very much. Sunday morning dawned clear and bright. Zachary took extra care with his appearance, trimming his beard neatly and donning his best shirt. Emma wore her blue calico dress, the one Lucy had mended with a ribbon in her hair. You look mighty handsome, boss, Tobias commented with a knowing twinkle in his eye as they prepared to leave for church. Zachary chose to ignore the implication, though he couldn't deny the flutter of anticipation he felt at the prospect of seeing Lucy. They arrived at the small white church early, securing a pew with room for a third person. Lucy arrived moments before the service began, wearing a simple dress of deep green that complemented her coloring beautifully. Several heads turned to watch her progress up the aisle, including Liam Foster, the town's bachelor lawyer, who half rose as if to offer her a seat. Zachary felt an unexpected surge of possessiveness. As he stood and motioned Lucy to join them, Emma immediately scooted closer to Lucy, whispering a hello that earned a gentle shushing from her father. Throughout the service, Zachary found his attention divided between Reverend Thompson's sermon and the woman beside him, her voice clear and sweet during the hymns. After the service, as congregation members gathered on the church steps, Mrs. Henderson approached them. Miss Abernathy, Mr. Pierce, she greeted them with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. How lovely to see you together today. Something in her tone made Zachary straighten. Miss Abernathy has been kind enough to teach Emma sewing, he explained, perhaps too formally, indeed. Mrs. Henderson raised an eyebrow. Such dedicated instruction, you must be spending considerable time together. Lucy met the older woman's gaze steadily. Emma shows remarkable aptitude. I consider it a privilege to nurture such talent. Mrs. Henderson murmured. Well, do remember that small towns have long memories and quick tongues, my dear. Reputations are precious commodities out here. With that parting shot, she moved on to greet other parishioners, leaving an uncomfortable silence in her wake. I should go, Lucy said quietly. Mrs. Henderson is right about tongues wagging. Wait, Zachary caught her elbow gently. Join us for Sunday dinner. Tobias is visiting his sister in Boulder, so it would just be the three of us, but I'd consider it an honor. The conflict played across Lucy's face, propriety warring with desire. Finally, she nodded. I'll need to change first. This dress isn't suited for a ranch kitchen. We'll wait, Zachary assured her. An hour later, Lucy was in Zachary's kitchen, sleeves rolled up as she showed Emma how to make proper biscuits, Catherine's recipe, which Zachary had attempted with limited success over the past year and a half. The secret is not to handle the dough too much, Lucy explained, guiding Emma's small hands. Just enough to bring it together, no more. Zachary watched from the doorway, struck by the domestic tableau before him. For the first time since Catherine's death, His kitchen felt truly alive again, filled with laughter, warmth, and the promise of good food made with care. The meal they shared was simple but satisfying. Afterward, while Emma played with her dolls on the porch, Zachary and Lucy washed dishes side by side. "Thank you," he said suddenly. "Not just for today, but for everything these past weeks. You've brought something back to this house that I thought was gone forever." Lucy paused, a plate dripping in her hands. "What's that?" "Hope," he said simply. "A sense that life can be more than just surviving from one day to the next." Lucy's eyes softened. "I should be thanking you and Emma. When I came to Promise Creek, I was running away from hurt, trying to build a new life through sheer determination. You've reminded me there's more to living than just working and sleeping." Their eyes held, and Zachary found himself leaning slightly closer. Lucy's breath caught, the plate forgotten in her hands. For a heartbeat, he thought he might kiss her, wanted to, with an intensity that surprised him. The sound of Emma's footsteps on the porch broke the spell. Lucy turned away quickly, focusing intently on drying the plate as Emma burst through the door. "Papa, can Miss Lucy see my kittens before she goes?" They opened their eyes yesterday. The moment passed, but something had changed between them. A line crossed, or at least approached. As Zachary watched Lucy crouching in the barn beside his daughter, exclaiming over the tiny kittens nested in the hay, he realized with sudden clarity that he was falling in love with her. The thought should have terrified him, should have felt like a betrayal of Catherine's memory. Instead, it settled in his chest with the warmth of something right and natural, as if his heart had been waiting for permission to feel again. That evening, as he drove Lucy back to town in his wagon, a comfortable silence enveloped them. The setting sun painted the landscape in golds and purples, and somewhere in the distance, coyotes began their evening chorus. "It's beautiful here," Lucy said softly. "I can see why you stayed even after Catherine died," Zachary finished for her. "Yes. This land is part of us now, part of Emma. Catherine's buried on the hill behind the house, under the big cottonwood. She loved that spot." He paused, then added, "She would have liked you, Lucy." Lucy's hand found his on the wagon seat, her fingers warm and reassuring. "I'm honored you think so." As they reached the edge of town, Zachary slowed the horses. "Would it be forward of me to ask if I might call on you properly, not just for Emma's sake, but for my own?" In the fading light, Lucy's smile was radiant. "I would like that very much, Zachary." He helped her down from the wagon outside her boarding house, holding her hand perhaps a moment longer than strictly necessary. "Good night, Lucy." "Good night, Zachary," she replied softly, before turning to walk up the path. He watched until she was safely inside before clicking to the horses. The road home seemed brighter somehow, despite the gathering dusk. June brought scorching heat to Promise Creek. The creek that gave the town its name dwindled to a lazy trickle, and dust devils danced across the parched land. Lucy's shop grew uncomfortably warm by midday, forcing her to complete her more delicate work in the cooler morning hours. Zachary began calling on her regularly, sometimes with Emma, sometimes alone when his daughter was visiting friends. They took evening walks along the creek, attended the town's Independence Day celebration together, and shared countless cups of coffee on the small bench outside her shop. Their courtship, though proper and respectful, did not go unnoticed in the small community. Most regarded it with approval. The widowed rancher and the respectable seamstress seemed well matched in temperament and circumstance. A few, like Mrs. Henderson, sniffed disapprovingly at what they considered undue haste, but even they could find little concrete to criticize. One sweltering afternoon in late July, Zachary arrived at Lucy's shop to find her packing a large basket. "Perfect timing," she greeted him with a smile. "I was just about to send a message to the ranch." "Oh," Zachary removed his hat, wiping his brow with his handkerchief. "What's the occasion?" "Emma's birthday," Lucy reminded him. "She mentioned last week it's tomorrow, and I thought perhaps we might have a small celebration. I've made a cake." Zachary stared at her, momentarily speechless. With all the summer work on the ranch, he had indeed forgotten his own daughter's birthday was approaching. The realization filled him with both shame and immense gratitude toward Lucy. "You remembered," he said finally. Lucy's expression softened. "Of course I did." She's turning 7, an important age. She hesitated, suddenly uncertain. I hope I haven't overstepped. No, Zachary assured her quickly. Not at all. You've saved me from a father's unforgivable error. He peered into the basket. Is that truly a cake, chocolate? Lucy confirmed. And I found some peppermint candies at the mercantile she mentioned once they were her favorite. There's also a small gift. You're remarkable, Zachary said simply. Lucy blushed. It's nothing, really. I enjoy celebrating birthdays. It's everything, Zachary corrected her. To Emma and to me. The next day, Emma's face when she discovered the surprise celebration was worth every effort. The simple chocolate cake with 7 candles, the small bag of peppermint sticks, and Lucy's gift, a cloth doll with a wardrobe of tiny clothes that Emma could change, delighted the child beyond measure. This is the best birthday ever, she declared, hugging Lucy fiercely. Later, after Emma had gone to bed, still clutching her new doll, Zachary and Lucy sat on the porch steps, watching fireflies dance in the gathering darkness. Thank you, Zachary said for perhaps the 10th time that evening. I don't know what we'd do without you. Lucy smiled, her face illuminated by the soft glow from the lantern hanging above the door. You'd manage. You're a good father, Zachary. Better with your help, he admitted. He took a deep breath, gathering his courage. Lucy, I've been thinking a great deal lately about us. Lucy's hands stilled in her lap, her eyes meeting his with a question in their depths. These past months have been the happiest I've known since losing Catherine, Zachary continued. You've brought light back into our lives, mine and Emma's. I find myself. That is, I've come to care for you deeply. I care for you too, Lucy said softly, more than I thought possible after. After your broken engagement, Zachary finished. I understand, I never thought I could feel this way again either. He took her hand in his. I'm not rushing you, Lucy. I know we both carry scars, but I want you to know my intentions are honorable. In time, when you're ready, I hope to make you my wife. Lucy's eyes widened, a mixture of joy and trepidation crossing her features. Zachary, the sound of hoofbeats interrupted her response. Zachary turned to see Tobias riding hard toward the house, an unusual occurrence at this hour. Boss, the ranch hand called, reining in his horse. Fire at the Richardson place, the whole town's turning out to help. Zachary was on his feet immediately. Bad, barn's gone already. They're trying to save the house and livestock, Tobias reported grimly. Sheriff's calling for every able-bodied man. Zachary turned to Lucy. I have to go. Of course, she said, already gathering her things. I'll stay with Emma, don't worry about us. Zachary caught her hand. We'll finish this conversation later, he promised, then impulsively leaned forward and pressed a brief, tender kiss to her lips before hurrying to saddle his horse. The Richardson fire proved as devastating as feared. Their barn was completely destroyed, and the family home sustained significant damage before the bucket brigade could bring the flames under control. It was nearly dawn when Zachary returned home, exhausted and smoke-stained. He found Lucy dozing in his armchair, a quilt half finished in her lap. She woke at the sound of his entry, immediately rising to help him remove his soot-covered coat. The Richardsons, she asked anxiously. All safe, Zachary assured her. Property damage is bad, but no lives lost. They'll stay with the Millers until repairs can be made. He sank wearily into a chair. The whole town turned out. They're organizing a barn raising for next week. Lucy brought him water and a damp cloth to clean his face. You should rest. I can make coffee before I go. Stay. Zachary caught her hand. Please. It's barely dawn and you've been up all night. Lucy hesitated, propriety warring with exhaustion. What of Emma? Still asleep, I'm sure, and Tobias will be back soon. Zachary's voice softened. I don't want you to leave yet, not after what I said before I left. Lucy's cheeks colored slightly. About that, Zachary, are you certain? It's been less than 6 months since we met. I've never been more certain of anything, he replied without hesitation. I love you, Lucy. I didn't plan it, didn't expect it, but there it is. He managed a tired smile. You don't have to answer now. I meant what I said about not rushing you. Lucy knelt beside his chair, her eyes searching his. I love you too, she whispered. I think I have for some time now, but... She took a deep breath. Marriage is a serious step. There's Emma to consider and Catherine, Zachary finished gently. I understand, But know this: loving you doesn't diminish what I had with her. Catherine will always be Emma's mother, always have a place in our hearts, but she would want us to be happy, Lucy. She would want Emma to have a mother's love again." Tears glistened in Lucy's eyes. "I would never try to replace her." "No one could," Zachary agreed, "but you would bring your own love, your own strengths." He cupped her cheek gently. "Think about it, that's all I ask." Lucy leaned into his touch. "I will." The next week brought the promised barn raising for the Richardsons. The entire community gathered to help men constructing the frame while women prepared food and children carried water to thirsty workers. Lucy organized the seamstresses of Promise Creek to sew new curtains and linens for the damaged Richardson home. Zachary worked alongside the other men, raising heavy beams into place under the late summer sun. From time to time, he would catch glimpses of Lucy moving among the women's tables, her capable hands never idle. Once, their eyes met across the busy yard, and the smile she gave him carried such warmth that he nearly dropped the plank he was holding. "Mind your work there, Pierce," Sheriff Morgan teased. "Seems your attentions wandered south to the pie tables." Zachary accepted the good-natured ribbing with grace. His courtship of Lucy was now common knowledge in Promise Creek and most approved. Even Mrs. Henderson had softened her stance after witnessing Lucy's tireless work for the Richardson family. As the new barn took shape, Zachary found himself drawing parallels to his own life, rebuilding something strong and necessary from the ashes of loss. By sundown, the barn's frame stood complete, a testament to community spirit and the resilience of frontier folk. With work finished for the day, families gathered for a communal supper. Zachary found Lucy helping Mrs. Richardson serve slices of apple pie. "You've barely rested all day," he observed, accepting the plate she offered him. Lucy smiled tiredly. "Neither have you, but it feels good to help, doesn't it?" "It does," he agreed, leading her to a quieter spot beneath a large oak tree. "Emma's over with the Jenkins girls." "Eat something yourself." Lucy accepted half of his pie with a grateful nod. They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, watching the community celebrate their collective achievement. "I've been thinking about what you said," Lucy ventured finally. "About us." Zachary set his plate aside, giving her his full attention. And I would like to accept your proposal," she said, her voice steady despite the blush creeping up her cheeks. "If it still stands." Joy surged through Zachary with such force that for a moment he couldn't speak. When he found his voice, it was rough with emotion. "It stands. Lucy Abernathy, will you marry me?" "Yes," she answered simply. "Yes, I will." Zachary took her hand in his, wishing they were somewhere more private so he could properly express his happiness. When Lucy considered. Not too hastily. Emma should have time to adjust to the idea. "Perhaps October, when the aspens turn gold." "October," Zachary agreed. 6 weeks, I can be patient that long." The news of their engagement spread quickly through Promise Creek. Emma, when told, reacted with such unbridled enthusiasm that any lingering doubts either adult might have harbored were instantly dispelled. "Does this mean you'll live with us forever?" she demanded of Lucy. "And teach me more sewing, and maybe have a baby for me to play with, Emma." Zachary admonished, though he couldn't help smiling at his daughter's forthright questions. Lucy knelt to Emma's level. "It means I'll be your stepmother, if that's all right with you. I'll live here with you and your father, and yes, I'll teach you everything I know about sewing. And the baby." Emma persisted. Lucy's cheeks colored as she glanced up at Zachary. That would be something for your father and me to decide together later on." Emma seemed satisfied with this answer and immediately began planning where Lucy's sewing table should be placed in the house. The weeks leading up to the wedding passed in a flurry of preparations. Lucy closed her shop temporarily, transferring her current projects to her apprentice, Martha Wilson. Zachary added a small room to the ranch house that would serve as Lucy's sewing space. Together, they selected furniture for their shared bedroom, a delicate negotiation that acknowledged Catherine's memory while making room for their new beginning. 2 weeks before the wedding, a letter arrived for Lucy from Ohio. Her parents, having finally forgiven what they viewed as her impulsive flight west, announced their intention to attend the ceremony. Lucy received this news with mixed emotions. "They've never even met you," she fretted to Zachary. What if they disapprove? What if they try to convince me to return east with them? Zachary took her hands in his. Then I'll have to be very persuasive about the charms of Colorado ranching, he said lightly. More seriously, he added, they're your family, Lucy. I want them to know you're marrying a man who will cherish and respect you all his days. The Abernathys arrived 3 days before the wedding. Harold and Margaret, Lucy's parents, accompanied by her younger sister, Eliza. They were clearly prosperous, their Eastern clothes and manners somewhat at odds with Promise Creek's frontier simplicity. Zachary felt a momentary trepidation as Harold Abernathy sized him up with a businessman's calculating eye. But Emma, with her natural charm, quickly won over the visitors. And by the end of their first dinner together, the atmosphere had warmed considerably. You have a fine home here, Mr. Pierce, Margaret Abernathy acknowledged, her initial reserve softening as she observed the evident care with which Zachary had prepared for Lucy's arrival. And a remarkable daughter. Thank you, madam, Zachary replied. I'm blessed beyond measure, and never more so than when your daughter agreed to join our family. Later, as Zachary drove the Abernathys back to the hotel, Harold cleared his throat. I confess, Pierce, when Lucy wrote of her engagement to a rancher in this remote location, I had my doubts. But seeing her today the way she looks at you, the ease between you and the child, well, a father can't ask for more than his daughter's happiness. I'll do everything in my power to ensure it, sir, Zachary promised. The wedding day dawned clear and crisp, with the aspens glowing gold against a perfect blue sky, just as Lucy had envisioned. The ceremony took place in Promise Creek's small church, filled to capacity with townsfolk who had come to regard both bride and groom with genuine affection. Lucy wore a dress of ivory silk, simple by Eastern standards, but elegant in its clean lines and delicate lace trim. Emma, serving as their only attendant, carried a bouquet of late summer wildflowers and wore a new dress that Lucy had made especially for the occasion. As Zachary watched Lucy walk toward him on her father's arm, he felt a moment of profound gratitude for second chances, for the twists of fate that had brought her to his door that day with a needle and thread, for the courage it had taken both of them to open their hearts again. Reverend Thompson spoke of new beginnings, of the blessings found in joining two lives and creating a family. When the time came to speak their vows, Zachary's voice was steady and sure. I, Zachary, take you, Lucy, to be my wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do us part. Lucy's eyes shone with tears as she repeated the sacred promises. When Reverend Thompson pronounced them husband and wife, Zachary kissed her with tender reverence, sealing their covenant before God and community. The celebration afterward was joyous, a feast spread under the cottonwood trees, with music, dancing, and enough food to feed half the county. As afternoon mellowed into evening, Zachary found a moment alone with his new wife. Happy, Mrs. Pierce? He asked, drawing her close. Completely, Lucy assured him, resting her head against his shoulder. It feels right, Zachary, like coming home after a long journey. That's exactly it, he agreed. Like finally finding the place you're meant to be. As darkness fell and the party continued, Harold Abernathy approached them with a document in hand. A wedding gift, he explained, presenting it to Lucy. The deed to your shop building. It's yours now, free and clear, Lucy gasped. Father, that's too generous, Harold shook his head. You've built something fine here, Lucy. A business, a reputation, a new life. Your mother and I are proud of you. His eyes moved to include Zachary, both of you. Later that night, after the guests had departed and Emma was asleep in her room, Zachary and Lucy stood on the porch of what was now truly their home. The stars spread like diamonds across the vast Colorado sky, and somewhere in the distance, a coyote called to its mate. I never thought I'd find this again, Zachary said softly, his arms encircling his wife. This feeling of completeness. Lucy turned in his embrace, reaching up to trace the line of his jaw. Nor I. After James broke our engagement, I thought perhaps I wasn't meant for marriage and family. That my work would be my only legacy. And now, Zachary asked, drawing her closer. Now I have everything I never dared to dream of, Lucy answered. A husband I adore, a daughter to love, a home that needs me, and work that fulfills me. And perhaps someday, Zachary added tentatively, more children to complete our family. Lucy's smile was radiant in the moonlight. I would like that very much. As he led his wife inside to the privacy of their bedroom, Zachary sent a silent prayer of thanks to whatever forces had guided his life to this moment, for the grief that had opened him to new joy, for the broken fence that had deepened their connection, for the simple act of mending a child's dress that had begun their journey together. In the years that followed, the Pierce family flourished. Lucy's dress shop expanded to include a small millinery, becoming a fixture in Promise Creek's growing business district. Zachary's ranch prospered, allowing them to add modern conveniences to their home and set aside funds for Emma's education. Their family grew as well. The spring after their wedding brought the birth of their son, William Harold Pierce, a sturdy boy with his father's determined chin and his mother's thoughtful eyes. 2 years later, Catherine Rose joined the family, named in loving memory of Emma's mother. Emma, now a young woman of 16, had inherited both her birth mother's grace and her stepmother's skilled hands. Under Lucy's patient tutelage, she had developed into a talented seamstress in her own right, with dreams of studying fashion design in Denver or perhaps even San Francisco. On a warm summer evening, much like the one when Lucy had first stepped onto his porch, Zachary sat with his wife on their favorite bench overlooking the valley. Their children played in the yard below William, chasing fireflies, while little Catherine carefully arranged pebbles into patterns only she understood. Emma sat nearby, sketching designs for a new dress in a leather-bound book Zachary had given her for her birthday. 10 years, Zachary mused, his arm comfortably around Lucy's shoulders. Sometimes it feels like yesterday that you stopped your wagon to help a fumbling widower with his daughter's dress. Lucy smiled, leaning into his embrace. And sometimes it feels like I've always been here, like this has always been my home. It has, Zachary assured her. Even before you knew it existed, you were always meant to find us, Lucy. I believe that with all my heart. As the sun dipped below the distant mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose, Zachary Pierce counted his blessings: a thriving ranch, healthy children, a community that had supported him through his darkest days. And beside him, the woman who had taught him that love, like a well-mended garment, could be stronger at the broken places. In Lucy's hands, he had placed his wounded heart, and with patience and care, she had stitched it whole again, not erasing the scars, but incorporating them into something beautiful and enduring. Together, they had created a tapestry of family, richer and more complex than either could have imagined alone. As twilight deepened into night, Zachary pressed a kiss to his wife's temple. I love you, Lucy Pierce. And I love you, she replied, her voice holding the same warmth and certainty it had 10 years before when she had promised to be his wife. Today, tomorrow, and all the days to come.